So I've been thinking about FNAF lore for a bit, listening to the books and so on, and just catching up on lore and theories. With that, I want to break down William Afton and just explain what I think is going on with each showing of him with his spring trap, scrap trap, glitch trap, and burn trap counterparts and why the portrayals of them are so different. Just overall, how I understand the character and the reason for the strong differences we see in personalities. I'm not sure where to start, but I think starting with the idea of remnant, I want to start with this because I think it explains what is going on with each version of William and why there seems to be a strong personality difference. From my understanding of remnant, there's two main parts to know about. Remnant and Dark Remnant, going off the lore of FNAF, pretty much what I can gather is souls are kind of weird. So pretty much anything can have a soul with enough emotions imprinted on them, or better yet to say, remnant are the fingerprints of souls. Since Ghost and the idea of the afterlife, since it's kind of made clear William is set for hell, I would assume there's still a normal idea of a basic Christianity and that the way the system works is life that has a soul can imprint their emotions onto metal. With a strong enough imprint, it can trap souls into it, allowing the soul's possession said objects. It's a bit more complex. If I'm not mistaken, it can also be an object that isn't metal, but metal is the most effective with the impressions of these emotions that can trap a soul in. One way it was explained, remnant can be the idea of you being imprinted onto something, but then you have dark remnant, which is from a darker and sinister imprinting of remnant. From what I read, dark remnant can be the opposite of remnant, where instead imprinting the idea of you on it, it's imprinting the collective idea of you onto it or a collective effect of something. Example of this can be the shadow animatronics are the representation of dark remnant for each of the missing children, event for Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy. Now that I explain remnant from how I understand it, I can go into William Afton from what we know, borrowing from the books a bit. So from what we know, William is a psychopath, showing pretty much every sign due to mass murder. So he's also shown to have a massive ego from his voice lines as Scrap Trap, and as well his murder of Henry Daughter being out of spite, even more so proven by the books, since one of the things the book shows us is the kind of person William was. With Springtrap being William being trapped in his creation as a form of enteral tomb for punishment by fate for his misdeeds, only being alive due to Remnant keeping his soul trap in his corpse. He doesn't speak with the only sounds he makes are moans of pains, showing he's someone suffering. Appearing more machine than person, since you can barely see his remains in the suit. Point being, it's being shown his personality is most likely trapped deep in there, even in UCN. He doesn't even have lines, just pretty basic. Now, on Scrap Trap, it's very different. Not only you see very clearly his remains from skull to broken arm bone sticking out, it's clear Scott was trying to give off that this version was more human, that the person trap inside is more coming out, that he isn't as trapped anymore, which is why he talks he does even in UCH. I believe it's because either the remnant on him is either stronger or his personality isn't being restricted as much. I want to point out it's rather clear that this more human William is clearly meant to show he's a hollow of his former self, only showing his ego and cockiness, really showing the potential of remnant being able to imprint the idea of someone into something, or the core parts, but just a bit more hollow. Since he lacks the fullness of his alive counterpart, the ego and cockiness without the calm and collected charisma he had when alive. Now for Glitch Trap, so the reason why I went into so much detail about how Remnant was meant to imprint one's soul or idea of oneself onto an object, or just trap the soul of the person to something, which is why William is still alive, but yet more hollow compared to his real self. I believe Glitch Trap is Dark Remnant rather than just Remnant. That Glitch Trap is the collective idea of William, or the representation of the man behind the slaughter, kind of how the shadows are the representation of the missing kids from the two events. I believe this because it explains why Glitch Trap is just so different from William. He has the calm and collected charisma he had when alive that the other traps were missing, yet he's missing the ego, the self-identity the other traps had, with borderline no dialogue, and the one he does has is just basic. Simply what is needed to be said to manipulation the person he's targeting. He just lacks the personality that was shown William had with the cockiness and ego. Hell, every showing of William shows him as pretty chatty, even more so on himself. But not to ramble on the same point for too long, another interesting point is how Glitch Trap is shown in the mini games like Princess Quest is a shadow, like Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy, this shadow that takes over and is all powerful. This is why I think Glitch Trap is Dark Remnant, and that's why I think his personality is so different. It's less of his own sense of self being imprinted to make the other traps before, but the idea of William being imprinted and the horrors he done that made Glitch Trap. Now this brings us to Burn Trap, Yep, that rush messed. Make it simple. I think the point is that it's supposed to be the mix of Remnant and Dark Remnant. Honestly, not sure what to say about it other than that. Not much info on what if they mixed. But that's what I think is going on here. The point of each different Williams is that we've seen him in different form of Remnant. Though we'll say I think the only odd one out is the first Springtrap, which was probably made before the idea of Remnant. So that's why he's just a creepy mess of a killer in his own creations.